if Krystal, if I were you, you're going to have to issue a statement on this. If you don't, people are going to draw their own conclusions, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Just say the truth. I mean, listen, if somebody is holding it over your head and saying James Lee can no longer be employed by you or X, Y, and Z, James has already made it very clear that there is something going on with this Stop Anti-Semitism psycho-Zionist person. So there'll be more to the story as we go forward.
Recently, James Lee was just fired from Breaking Points, which I am confused about. I'm like, why in the world would they do it? Before we get into any of the videos, I know you have a hard stop, Peter, but if you can give me your initial thoughts about this, because I have my thoughts, but I'm curious about what you think.
When I think of the best investigative journalists out there today, Jordan Chariton, Status Quo, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, James Lee is in that category. He does exceptional work, and we use footage from his takedowns of certain topics on our show. I would say at least once a week. There's probably at least one important story that he's covering. And I've always been quick to point out, because I know Krystal personally, and the fact that we would always say, James Lee from Breaking Points for Krystal and Saagar. And obviously it's way too early to determine exactly what the reasoning is, but I think we can surmise, because he's such a straight shooter and such an honest operator, that the only reason why he was taken out from his position is because, as you like to say, Jen, he's flying a little too close to the sun. And when you are that accurate when it comes to the truth, that's how you get fired. You don't get fired for being a buffoon. You get fired for being good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Jen.
No, we're hoping. I mean, I'm going to ask him. I'm hopeful that maybe we'll be able to get him on soon to talk about this. It's disappointing. I haven't watched Breaking Points in years. So I actually followed James Lee on his own channel, which is 5149 with James Lee. I know he's launching. He put out a statement that he's launching a new thing. I think it's his own website. He's going to have his own membership, his whole own thing, which is great. So I'm hoping to get him on so that we could help promote that. But them firing him, to me, it validates that I stopped watching them. Right? Like, that's the kind of stuff that you do when you are covering truth. You don't do that if you're trying to expose truth. And honestly, shame on Krystal. Shame on anybody that's affiliated with that is just sitting there with this. So you're willing to sit there and eat at that trough, even though you know that trough is completely poisoned because of what just happened.
And I'll leave on this note. If Krystal, if I were you, you're going to have to issue a statement on this. If you don't, people are going to draw their own conclusions, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Just say the truth. I mean, listen, if somebody is holding it over your head and saying James Lee can no longer be employed by you or X, Y, and Z, James has already made it very clear that there is something going on with this Stop Anti-Semitism psycho-Zionist person. So there'll be more to the story as we go forward. I appreciate you having me on, my friend, and I will definitely be talking to you again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so very much, Peter. Good to see you. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to get into was just a little bit of the video of James Lee actually telling basically all of us that he's been essentially unceremoniously fired from Breaking Points, which in my view, I'm just like, wait a minute. Like, how did this happen? Like, why did this happen? And he actually goes over that. And when I hear the excuse, there's a part of me that goes, or it's like, oh, so this really is just business. And so let me make sure I have this prepared.
I think this was a memo that came down from the top. And what made me think of that, and I don't know if part of this, if in this clip it is where he talks about how his TikTok account was completely deactivated, even though he doesn't even post on TikTok.
Yeah.
So in other words, he was pointed out by people like Larry Ellison and he was highlighted and he was targeted. And so everybody fell in line accordingly.
Yeah. Let's take a look at this. This is quite telling. So, and how many views is this already? This is almost 150,000 views already.
Good.
This is massive. I caught it when it was at like 5,000 views last night. So let's go.
There's a famous saying, all tyrannies rule through fraud and force. But once the fraud is exposed, then they must rely exclusively on force. And because my entire platform is literally dedicated to exposing fraud, it is maybe not a surprise that the powers that be are laying the hammer down on me right now pretty hard, seemingly all at once, and I could definitely use some of your support. So I'll start here. A few weeks ago, the pro-Israel Stop Anti-Semitism advocacy group named me Anti-Semite of the Week. For what? Simply daring to call out Israel's lies and deceit. And this is what they're citing as anti-Semitism. Me saying that, quote, Israel is a parasite to the world and that their survival depends on deception, bribery, manipulation, and coercion, and that the truth threatens its very existence, which is all just factually true. There is a reason why they have a multi-million-dollar annual Hasbro budget for this exact specific purpose. They also evidently did not like that I called out the fact that the state of Israel was literally founded by Zionist terrorists and that they quite literally invented terrorism itself. Also just factually true. Just Google the King David Hotel 1946 and you will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Where's the lie, Jen?
There is none. That's the point. That's what Peter was touching on. Like if what he was saying wasn't true, then nobody would have a problem with it. So that's the thing. He hit close to home that he is, and I'm not entirely sure that what's really going on isn't somehow connected to his expose on the Charlie Kirk assassination and the information that he's been pointing out over very religiously on that, because he has shown some very interesting findings. And of course, all roads lead to Israel. All roads lead to Mossad or, whoever is handling that for them. And so, yeah, I think it might be, we will never know what was the final straw, but people like him, they're constantly being monitored.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's continue on.
They also say that it's somehow wrong to argue that the ADL's, in my opinion, bastardized version or definition of anti-Semitism is not actually about protecting Jewish people, but is instead about protecting Israel from accountability. So I guess trying to protect Jews is bad. Anyway, the Stop Anti-Semitism group was founded by this lady named Leora Rez, and their entire platform is all about getting people fired for criticizing Israel. Honestly, I think
Hang on. Does she look kind of bit like Krystal Ball?
A little bit with darker hair. I could see it. Yeah. Yeah. But even though it might not be cool that Krystal is not, sticking her neck out here for James, I don't think she'd be on that side of things.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. It's kind of ironic. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not really the big point. The overarching theme is that this group is trying to get people like him fired, and then Breaking Points followed suit.
Yeah. So if the independent media like Breaking Points, which a lot of people on the left or progressives have generally considered to be, decent alternative media. So if this is where they are, then I guess that's not so decent.
I guess not. Let's continue.
People fired for criticizing Israel. Honestly, I think I should probably do a deep dive on them, and I think I will. But right now, they are literally telling people to mass report my account in order to deplatform me. And maybe, just maybe by coincidence, maybe not, I don't know for sure, but the second thing that happened to me in this last week was that my TikTok account was unceremoniously banned. For what specifically? I have no idea, because honestly, I haven't even been posting there very much because they were censoring me anyway, and I really couldn't post anything. People should know, if you don't know already, that the new owner of TikTok, billionaire Larry Ellison, is the largest private donor to the IDF. Okay. And that the head of their content moderation is this lady named Erica Mendel, who is a former IDF soldier. But China is really the big problem, right? They were stealing our data. So the solution for that is, of course, to turn around and hand it over to Israel. That is totally what America First is all about. Anyway, and then you have the hat trick. Number 3, you guys remember last week when I talked about how Breaking Points decided not to air my interview with Elijah Schaffer, who is being sued currently by Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins? Well, yesterday, their producer sent me an email notifying me that my relationship with them will end, quote unquote, effective immediately. The reason they cited is that they're, quote unquote, looking ahead to 2026 and making some changes in content, and felt that my submissions did not align with their new direction. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but my gut feeling is that they probably felt that I was free speeching just a little too hard for their liking.
Okay. What direction do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting because it could be anything from he's just generally incendiary and finding things that we don't want him to find, or it could be that he pissed off Kash Patel and they got a phone call from their owner and that was that, right? It could, or a phone call from Larry Ellison, right? You never know with these people because it is such a tyrannical situation. So they're going to just say he wasn't going in the same direction as them. Yes, he was exposing truths that they don't want exposed. So that's not the direction they want to go in.
But I thought it was all about sticking up for the working class. I thought that Breaking Points, especially with somebody like a Krystal Ball, she was always talking about the working class. They talked about labor issues a lot. She talked about the victory of the NLRB. She talked about all these different things involving working class issues. And then you have James Lee, who does deep dives that really uncover what the transgressions of the empire is doing against the working class. And somehow he's revealing too much.
Well, what does that say? Like, what does that tell us? It's very Bernie-like, like we'll sit there and we'll say all the right things. We'll hit all the right talking points. We'll say that we stand with working people. We'll say that we're for labor. But at the end of the day, we're going to usher you right back into the duopoly. So it's almost like Breaking Points is just a media version of that, which Bernie is the political version of. So they're basically controlled opposition. So we'll say that some of it up to a point where our owners will let us go. It's sort of the same as people that think a protest is getting a permit for a march that is granted to you by your oppressor as to the designated time and place that you can stand and aimlessly file your grievance that they won't listen to. So it's the same thing, right? You will speak up as far as you're allowed within the permissible context of what you're allowed to speak up about. And once you get outside of that, it's done. It's done. And obviously that's what Breaking Points is.
This feels like it is trying to preserve what we call access journalism, where it's basically, well, we don't want to ruffle too many feathers because we want these politicians to still come on our show. And let me break it down to the audience, because you and I are in the independent media space, so we know. But if you are able to get some big name politician to come on, even if it's to push back, right? That means that people are going to be interested. They're going to want to tune in. That means that your numbers are going to go up. And remember that the YouTube game is basically based on AdSense and also having patrons on your Patreon. So the more you have, the more money you make. Therefore, having access to these politicians, if they see that somebody like James Lee or somebody within their orbit is speaking a little too much truth, and then they're going, well, we're not really going to touch your channel anymore, then that means they put themselves at risk to make less revenue. So my question is it really about integrity and telling the truth, or is it about the money?
Money and access, of course. And this also goes the same. This concept, what you're talking about, is also the same regarding the press that are invited into the press rooms, right? Those people that are invited into those rooms. And there's very rare exceptions, like occasionally a Max Blumenthal will get in every once in a while, like, and then get promptly escorted out. But, you know, the people that get invited into that room have already been vetted as tools of the establishment. They're already established as tools, or they wouldn't be invited in. And it's the same thing in terms of media space, where the let's say the selected people will allow themselves to go on because they know it's a safe place for them. They know they're not going to really be questioned. They're not going to be held accountable. There might be some mild pushback here and there, again, within the parameters of what's acceptable discourse. And so the second that somebody steps out of that, like what James Lee did, where they're like, oh, no, we're not going there. That's just, we can't have that. That was it. And I think it's very true that they're not going to, you know, someone like Krystal is not going to risk her career and her income and her stuff for that. And this is what naturally happens to people that get in those positions, because it's very comfortable to be in that position. You know, I mean, I don't understand it personally, because we only recently started being able to make any money whatsoever from people watching ads. Like, and we've been doing this for 5 years, and it's only been in the past few months that anything has come in. So I can't fathom how much money people like Krystal and Saagar are making from what they do. A lot. And so they're not going to sacrifice that. They're not going to risk that.
So one of the people who I have a conversation about this all the time, my sister, Savvy Savs. And one of the things that we always talk about, we always ask the question, what matters more, the mission or the money? And we always conclude that the mission matters the most. And truth be told, it's the mission only. And so when you have, and it's not just channels like Breaking Points, like, and they'll do dives on different things, and they'll be good, you know, in certain areas.
Sure.
You know, and I'll give them that. At the same time, when it comes to what solutions they're pushing, it's always voting.
Yeah.
I don't hear about anything else. I mean, what have you observed?
Yeah. I mean, they're only going to work within the confines of establishment allowed discourse, right? So these are people that will only address things like police reform, but they won't address abolition. These are people that will only go so far, right? Within the parameters that the establishment allows them to go. And it is a problem. It's a huge problem. Every time that something like this happens, like to James Lee, I feel like all of us in our space, Jay, like all the people that are trying to do what we're trying to do, it's like when something like that happens to James, it's like another person banged into the wall, right? You ran right into the wall, and we got to like figure out, okay, how do we get around this again? Like, as they keep putting up barriers to our getting content out and being able to expose the duopoly and the corruption. And, you know, they're playing whack-a-mole with us, but in response, we're running around like moles, popping up and just trying to get as much out there as we can while they're trying to stifle it all. It is very problematic, and it's very concerning. And I know that our solution is not going to be handled through electoral politics. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So, you know, when we say revolutionary, I think that a lot of people don't understand what that means. And to me, it very, very specifically does attribute this idea that this has to come from outside of the political process, and it has to come from us. And that is what, I mean, we're stuck in their matrix media-wise. And that's what makes it so difficult, because they own the media matrix that we're trying to get our message out in. And at some point, this is all going to go away, and we're going to have to all be dealing with this in the real world. Yeah. Because they're going to keep buying up the state. Like, at some point, we won't necessarily have access.
It's true. There's another point and give me your thoughts on this before I show or update response from James Lee. But I said this, was it last year? I think it was on Twitter last year. I said something to the effect of, there is a class divide in independent media on the left.
Yeah.
And people really didn't take to that. I think it got maybe like a low amount of views. But when I say there's a class divide, you have what I like to call the legacy left channels, who they only push just electoralism. They don't push anything through mutual aid, building dual power. And they'll continuously complain about the empire, but then they don't push forth any other solutions outside of electoralism. And then also, these are the ones that have 3, 4, 5, 600,000, 1 million subscribers, and they're making they're living well.
Yeah.
And yet they don't want to shake up the system by telling the working class, look, if you guys want to do voting, all right, go ahead and do that. But this is what we really need to do. I don't see that hardly ever from these, what I call legacy left channels.
No, and you won't, or they will no longer be legacy channels. It is absolutely a class divide. And that's the case for everything. That's even something we talk about regarding the Jewish community and their support for Ziohel. It's very much, there's a very strong class divide on that. So a lot of these things are class issues, because at the end of the day, this is a class war. And yeah, absolutely. Now, there are outliers that we would call class traitors, right? Like, there are people that would be in that upper echelon media space, and maybe they could be financially, but they actually do speak truth. And there are people like that. And, that's, like someone like Brianna Joy Gray, that could be legacy media, could have access to all of that and still speaks truth, right? So there are people in that world that are willing to put their name, their reputation, their neck out there for what's real and what's true, but mostly not. Yeah. And I get it. They don't want things to change. And if, let's say, hypothetically, the duopoly crumbled and electoral politics as we know it, the game was gone, what would those people do? What would they talk about? What access would they have, and who would they have access to? Because their access and what makes them relevant is their access to our beholden political process and the people that run that process. So if that's their bread and butter, they don't want anything to really change that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I will say this, James Lee's update, I think he's being very professional, but I'll give you my thoughts after I read what he says. So. Okay. This is an update from him. He said, personal update. I want to let you all know that my time as contributor for Breaking Points has come to an end. He's being very, very polite here. I want to give a massive thank you to Saagar, who reached out to me when I had just 2,000 subscribers. He took a chance on me and gave me the confidence that I belonged in this crazy world of media. I am incredibly grateful for the platform they provided. I wish Saagar, Krystal, and the whole team nothing but the best going forward. As for what's next, I'm more energized than ever to double down on fully independent journalism. I'm excited to build a space where we can speak the truth without restriction. And I can't wait to share this new chapter with y'all. Here's a little slight dig right there. Speak the truth without restriction. He's saying something right there.
Of course.
He basically saying, oh, I was restricted with Breaking Points. That's what it sounds like to me. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Well, and even if he wasn't, regarding like little things on every story, the fact that he was just let go, I guess, is the ultimate restriction. So it's now just proven that you are restricted on that media source. And yeah, James is definitely a very classy, gracious person, and he's definitely taking the high road here with them. And, you know, whatever, I don't wish anything bad on anybody, but I just will not, I can't take them seriously as what I would consider to be newsworthy at this point. Because if you're only covering what the establishment allows you to cover, you're not providing us with anything other than talking points and propaganda. So maybe instead of breaking points, it should be called talking points, and they should just, you know, go. I know. But no, and also I will say that, and I don't know if you're familiar with Status Quo, and our friend Jordan Sheraton over at Status Quo.
They do great.
Jordan realized a long time ago that the answer was in having your own system, your own memberships, your own email, your own contacts, because those of us who work primarily in this YouTube universe or even Rumble or whatever media we're on, we are at the behest of those companies and those platforms. And so it looks like also this is probably the best thing that could happen for James, really, because now he will be in complete control of his own complete platform. Yeah. And that is ultimately where because it's only a matter of time before YouTube gets rid of all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. My thought is he's being very professional in the way and how he was fired. It wasn't let go. He was fired.
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing he did last night, which was upload a video about it. And then I would have kept my mouth shut. I wouldn't have said anything else. The reason being is because the way they let James Lee go, they don't deserve a gracious update. Because, and like Peter said earlier, she needs to put out a statement, especially her, because she considers herself to be on the left. And this was a worker, because at the end of the day, Breaking Points, the owners are Krystal and Saagar and Enjeti. And so therefore, the buck stops with them. And therefore, that means it was a decision from the top down.
Yep.
So they're the ones that need to come out with a statement, not James. He announced, hey, by the way, I was fired from Breaking Points. This could be why. He didn't disparage them at all. He didn't call them outside of their name. He didn't call them anything but a child of God. Nothing. He was very factual about what he said. And he also said, we're going to still keep telling the truth unabashedly, no matter what. And so for him to put a cherry on top of it, which it wasn't even deserved, was, in my view, beyond gracious of him. I respect him for that. At the same time, I don't think it was actually necessary.
The only thing I could think about is, as we do know in the content creator space, right? Like, we don't necessarily alter our principles, right? But if throwing a little grace keeps you some followers and keeps you having somewhat of a crossover audience, and look, he has been part of that. So he needs to at least wants to take some of those people with him over to whatever he's doing. So, I mean, there is somewhat a business mindset involved, I do think, for him in taking the high road with it. But yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't have been so gracious.
Yeah. But at the same time, as well, to your point, this space is all about relationships.
Yep.
And so, and I always say you can disagree without being disagreeable. And it's like there's a part of me that goes, he wasn't wrong for being gracious, but it also makes Breaking Point looks even worse the longer it goes without them actually putting out a statement.
Yeah. Well, so maybe it's at the end of the day, he's coming out looking awesome, regardless of what you know about what happened. Exactly. So he getting on this actually does make them look even worse.
Yeah. And then even, people like Ian Carroll is coming to his defense. So I just wish, James Lee the best. And I hope that, he continues to grow and keep speaking truth to power. Speak truth to power, even if your voice shakes, right? That's what I hope for him. He's doing great work. And so, I mean, James, if you ever want a platform, my channel's really small, but hey, I'll give you a voice here too. I know your platform is way bigger than mine, but hey, there's another one. But
no, everybody needs to be sharing that. It isn't about the size of the platform. It's about the integrity of the platform. And you know, there are people in this space that have huge platforms because of attaching themselves to not such great characters and not such great people of integrity. And so they've gotten the wind behind their back, so to speak, in a lot of ways. And then there's people that have just been chugging along and just doing it every day on their own. And that's like you guys, and that's like us. And that's the community that we need to build up. And I think that, yeah, right now it is online, but I do believe that at some point in the future, it's going to need to be in real life. And when we talk about mutual aid and building, you know, like my goal is to live in a much smaller, sustainable community. I want to have a food forest. I want to have we are all going to need to get back to basics to me within the next 10 years. And I'm not saying that like scary Mad Max apocalyptic shit, but when the rest of the world is done with us and doesn't want to trade with us anymore, and the dollar is no longer the global currency, and we are no longer, you know, king shit a fuck mountain, which is that's coming, right? And when that happens, our ability to thrive will be directly correlated to the communities that we have established and set up that are smaller and sustainable, because everything else won't be functioning as it is right now.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is very important, I think.
Yeah. And when we meet.
Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. 1. Forehead kisses.